to attend today. So we've got the recording going now. Mercy.
Okay, perfect. Okay. And as Jackie mentioned, I'm sorry. Hello, everyone. As Jackie mentioned, we're going to be doing a couple of polls through the Zoom platform. There is just 1 to 5 questions for each section. For those of you folks that are calling in, unfortunately, you won't be able to participate now, but we will be sharing a link to the best practices survey along with the meeting recording. So you folks will be able to input your feedback then, as well as for other staff who couldn't make it today. Just one thing about the polls, I've put an other option for those whose answers don't quite fit what I've put there. Zoom doesn't allow you to clarify in that poll, but you can clarify and elaborate on your answer in the chat box or by phone if you would like. And I'll be hopefully asking a lot of questions and hopefully be getting a lot of feedback from you folks. And then at the end, we're again having a short 3-minute survey just to get your feedback on how today's session went and also get other ideas on future topics. For the next forum, we're hoping to have another one before the end of the fiscal year. Let's see. And a lot of the feedback that we'll be receiving today, it's all going towards our ZipBooks Best Practices Toolkit that we are currently working on building. We are hoping to complete the toolkit and make it available on the website for you folks to refer to. I know we have a lot of individual documents out there on our website, and hopefully this will help to gather them all in one place and then be a good reference point for programs that are starting or transitioning with some of the staff, because I know we've got a couple people retiring and some programs are going through some changes right now. So so your feedback is valuable. It's going towards our toolkit, and we'll be developing other toolkits and sharing them throughout the year as well. Let's see, I am going to exit out of this view so that I can see all my notes, but we're gonna, I've divided our forum today into different sections to help group the discussion. And we're gonna be starting off with best practices for policies that library set. And I'm gonna just go ahead and launch the first poll. And I'll give you folks a minute if you're logging in online to answer that poll, and we'll review the answers and then talk about some of the best practices that the State Library and NorthNet recommend, and get additional feedback from you folks on some of the policies that you've implemented. Let's see.
And just a note that you scroll down, there are, you see 2 at the top.
Yes.
Scroll down, there are more questions.
This one is 5 questions, and I'll just read out the questions for those who are calling in. The first question is, does your library limit program usage to only local residents? We're curious if you do that. Second question is, what request limits does your library set for a patron each month? Third, we want to know, does your library allow patrons to have more than 1 request at a time? Fourth, does your library check out ZipBooks items to a patron's account? That's sort of a policy procedural question, but I wanted to ask that because this next question, does your library set a due date for your ZipBooks items to be returned? And it looks like we've got maybe half of the poll, half people have answered, so maybe I'll leave it a little bit longer. This is a little bit longer than the other polls that
they're coming in, their votes are coming in, so
great.
We're at 60% now, so that's good.
see. I hate to end poll, but shall we get it to 75% or let's see, 2 minutes?
Oh, someone's asked, how do we answer the poll? They're joining in through the browser.
Oh, that's a really good question. We don't know.
But these questions will be in the Survey Monkey that we're going to send out after the webinar, correct?
Yes, yes,
So
I
you'll have
guess.
a chance to answer later. Is that correct?
Yes, they are. All these questions are going to be in the Survey Monkey that I'll share a link to. And then we will also possibly be adding other follow-up questions that come up during this discussion. So even if you are attending, you may want to go through the survey again to see if there are any new questions. So, and let's see.
So we're at 3 minutes with 78%. That's probably good.
Yeah, that's probably good. So I'll end it now and we'll go over the results. Just this was partly for our curiosity and then to sort of help give us a starting point to discuss things. So does your library limit program usage to only local residents? And it looks like 22% say yes, but 75% say no. So anyone with a library card can use it, whereas just a smaller portion of the libraries say that they limit to those who reside within their jurisdiction. So that's really interesting. What request limits does your library set for a patron each month? It looks like the bulk for libraries is 50% allow the maximum of 5 that we allow in the program. And then next we have 3 a month, which I think is a good in between. And then let's see, 2 a month, then 1 a month, and then 4 a month are the sort of order of preference, so to speak. Next question, does your library allow patrons to have more than 1 request at a time? It looks like 56% say no, they're only allowed 1 at a time. And then 28% say they can request their allowed limit all at once. And then 16% say they are only allowed 2 active requests at a time. I know that's the case in my county, Lake County. So that's interesting to know what other libraries are doing. Question 4, does your library check out ZipBooks items to a patron's account? So this is interesting. It's pretty close. We've got 56% answered yes, that's what they do, that's their procedure, while 44% say no. So it's fairly evenly distributed, and that'd be interesting when we discuss that why libraries choose to do that. And then question 5, does your library set a due date for ZipBooks items to be returned? Let's see, and it looks like we're sort of tied here. So 34% say yes, they do set a due date, but they have an extended borrowing period that's longer than regular library books. But the same amount also say no, they can have the item as long as they want, but they cannot request additional items until their request is returned. And then we've got 28% saying that they must return the item within the same time frame. Okay, I just saw I could have been sharing all these results at this this entire time, so you folks can scroll through yourself. So I apologize for that, and I'll make sure to do that in the future. So these are the poll results if you folks would like to see that. So that was really interesting, and I'm going to move it on the side here so that I can move to the next question, to the next slide here. So some of the policies that we recommend and is that I think most will follow is the patron eligibility. We ask that patrons be in good standing in order to participate in the program. And I think libraries sort of set their own standards on what is considered good standing. If you look in my notes, generally, you know, it's $5 or less than $5, or some have even $10 in outstanding charges. Some programs make sure that they don't have any lost or outstanding ZipBooks items. And then, as we saw here, question one, we have most libraries don't limit the program to where a patron resides, so long as they have the library card. So that's a, you know, policy that you folks are welcome to set. People are also welcome to restrict it, you know, depending on their own needs. If you have a nearby library jurisdiction that's also in the ZipBooks program, you're also welcome to forward them to use it at their local library instead. I did want to share some other restrictions that we have with patron eligibility. It's come up in a few questions. Dealing with snowbirds, so these patrons who come that reside in California for part of the year, and then move back home out of state when the weather warms up. We ask that they are welcome to participate in the program while they are residents of California, but we ask that we not ship any of the books out of state. That's just to make sure that funds are, you know, being used as they're intended to be used, and that items are being returned to libraries, because we want you folks to be adding it into your collection. Let's see, and then request limits. It looks like most people are using the maximum, and that's great. And we also welcome and encourage you folks to adjust that as needed. Say if funds are kind of being depleted quicker than expected, or if you find that your staff are unable to manage that many requests at a time. We do have the expenditure caps that we raised this fiscal year, which a lot of libraries have indicated has helped to grow their programs. So we're happy to hear that. You know, libraries are also still welcome to send me expenditure requests for items that exceed that $50 pre-tax limit for most books, or $75 for audiobooks and foreign language items. You're still welcome to email me and get an exception. I still get quite a few emailed, and you're welcome to decide at what books are appropriate for asking that request. A new request limit that another library has set at Riverside Public that I've been sharing with other people is setting a cap of $200 per household per month. I think they are setting it mainly for families where the parents and the children are all requesting ZipBooks, which can add up to, you know, having a good bulk of your funds being put towards just this one family. So they set a cap of $200, and it's been fairly easy for them to manage, I think. Yes, I see John wrote a note there that they had a few problem households that were using more than 10% of their budget. So that's a new policy that they said that, you know, really only affected a few patrons. Yeah, they said it's been easy to manage, and great Great. So I think that's something maybe that larger libraries or might choose to implement for their program. And then another issue that that's come up or question is ordering from foreign publishers. So we've in the past allowed that, and we will continue to do that. But I think in Sacramento we had a discussion how sometimes for items that have a pending U.S. publication date, they can order the same title from a foreign publisher before the street date, but that has caused some issues with holds list if they have a new item that's not expected to be published in the US for another 6 months, but you folks have a copy through the ZipBooks program. That's obviously going to cause some interest, and they have policies about keeping their holds list a certain length. And since it's bought through ZipBooks and they don't intend to purchase multiple copies until it's published in the US, they've chosen to set a policy about limiting those requests for items from foreign publishers that have a pending US date. And then the lending period policies, as we see that most people, it's a good split between those that have have a due date but in a slightly extended, or that don't have a due date at all. So that's really interesting to see. Are there any other policies that libraries have chosen to set that they think have been good best practices? And let's see, I am going to stop sharing this. And I'm gonna scroll through the chat to see if there's anything. Let's see, where does it answer? Okay. Let's see, I guess Sinden and Humboldt mentioned that they don't issue full access cards to non-residents. So in effect, that does limit the program to those that reside in their jurisdiction, but they don't actually police it. That's a good approach if that's part of your procedures. Let's see, Ivera mentioned, well, let's get to that she sent a book out of state. So, you know, that's a recent policy that we had never really considered that. So, you know, just from now on, if you would just make sure to keep the requests, send them within California, that would be great. And let's see, and Brenda asked if libraries are allowed to set their own resident policy. Yes, you folks are welcome to decide whether or not you want to limit it to just your residents or non-residents. You know, we had a great conversation with Sutter County, and you know, there's so many counties nearing them that also use the ZipBooks program. So it just makes sense to not limit it, because of course you've got patrons that are using multiple library systems and going in between, and it's less work for them to track that. So that's something you folks can choose to do, you know, taking into account where you're located, your existing library policies, and you know, your funds as well. And then clarifying on the foreign publishers policy. Michael mentioned that because they get a lot of those requests, they don't add the materials to the collection. So it's, you know, it makes sense for them to not order those books and spend their funds on something that they will actually add.
Percy, we might want to move on. I'm
Oh,
afraid.
oh, I see.
Our time is going to be running out, and
Oh, I see. Okay,
we're
great.
only on poll
Thank
number
you so
1.
much, Jackie, for keeping us on. Okay.
Okay.
So we will, review all the comments that people share, and we'll, follow up if necessary. And yeah, okay. So let's move on to procedures, best practices procedures. And I'm going to launch the poll again. And this one's shorter. It's only got 3 questions. We want to find out if your library has both a paper and online ZipBooks request form, if your library sends notifications to patrons about their ZipBooks requests, and what your library uses for the ZipBooks tracking tool. And while you folks answer that, I might just go ahead and start talking about some of the procedures that we recommend. So we do recommend providing both a printed and online form to sort of accommodate people's different needs. So some folks don't have access to internet or a computer. It's, if you're in an area that has a Spanish population, it's a good idea to make the form bilingual, which San Rafael has done with their online form. And then a great suggestion from Ventura County is to combine your ZipBooks request form and purchase suggest form in one. That way it's the same form, and they can decide whether or not to use their own ZipBooks funds for it, or use their ZipBooks funds for it, or their own library funds. So that's a great suggestion. Other things you could do to help make the process easier is do batch ordering, or ordering box sets if for example, for the kids items that you probably want to order the set instead of individual titles. Sometimes it's a little bit easier. And then the shipping options. I do want to clarify that libraries can have items shipped to a branch if a patron prefers it. And we do ask maybe for our ease that you kind of make a reference that it is a zip request for a patron. I think Brawley uses the library card number for the patron to keep their privacy. You're also welcome to send it to a PO box, the Amazon locker, and then the new one is the general delivery. This is a new question that we came up with. Some rural branches where the post office doesn't deliver to a home address, and you could have it instead delivered to the patron at general delivery for their local post office, and they can pick it up there, and that might be a little bit easier than having them come to the branch library. Let's see. I'm going to end the poll. We'll quickly go over the results. It looks like most have just a paper form, and then a mix has 37% have an online form. So that's an interesting split. And I'm wondering if that's just easier for folks to just have one or the other instead of both. The second question, does your library send notifications? It looks like most send notifications regarding their orders, which is very useful. I know patrons enjoy that, and you can sort of ease the process by creating automatic messages and using the gift message option on when you place the order, so they're kind of familiar with the return process and the due dates if they have that. And then the third question was, we wanted to know what you folks use for your tracking tool. That's just curiosity. It looks like most people use an Excel spreadsheet, and then we've got Google Sheets and Access Database. And I'm wondering, for those who said other, it'd be great if you would clarify those answers in the chat box for us to see. what other program you folks use. Let's see. SharePoint. Oh, interesting. That's a good idea for those that have the Office 365. That's we use that for our own internal fiscal spreadsheets. So that makes sense that you folks would use it for your program as well. So that's a great idea. Okay, great. You're welcome to keep sharing some of your procedures, and but we'll go ahead and keep things moving. With the next section is the end processing. So I'm going to launch the poll for that, and this one has just 4 questions this time. We want to know who determines whether or not a ZipBooks item is added to your library collection. If it's the ZipBooks staff, or if it goes to another department. We want to know, when does your library catalog the ZipBooks items? Is it at the beginning of the process when it's ordered, or you catalog them when they're returned, or if you don't catalog them at all? And then we want to know if you use the ZipBooks bookplate that we provide, or if you also use a ZipBooks sticker on the spine of your book, which we've seen some libraries do as well. So the end processing, is that something we're really curious about, to see what you folks are doing, to see how we can simplify the process, and so one thing that we recommend, you know, the selection process to sort of take into account the suitability of an item at the beginning when you receive the request. That might save you, you know, time in the end. You won't have to share it as a discard if you know you probably won't add it. So that's something you could do. The cataloging, I had the opportunity to look at what my local library does, and Lake County creates a temporary bib record using an assigned barcode. I know Harrison Memorial, they use the ISBN number for the book, and they'll use that and check that out to a patron's account. So those are really great ideas. And then it looks like most people use the book plates and the sticker. They're great ways to advertise the program, and also make it easier to browse if you're using the sticker on the spine. I do want to mention that if you do need additional stock for the book plates, you could request them from Jackie, or there are PDFs online of the files that you're welcome to print and maybe adapt for your own needs. And then ZipBooks discard. So that's a new thing we clarified this year. We want to make sure that libraries are sharing their discards with one another before they give it to their friends in the library, and to help sort of ease that process. You know, we recommend using your own policies and procedures to guide what you share with the group. So, for example, if you weed out a book because it's poor quality or it's self-published, and you can sort of assume that most likely other libraries won't add it to their collection for the same reasons. So that might save you some time sharing that item. And then some libraries have thought of great ways to share their discards by, you know, saving it in a bulk. Oops, I'm not sure what that is. And sharing them all at once, using the Amazon wish list to share the discards, or as I think we did clarify, that you're welcome to share the discards within your own consortium to help utilize your local shipping services. So that's a great way to kind of keep it sort of within your communities and save you folks some time and effort. And let's see, I'll end the poll and we'll quickly look at the results. It looks like for most libraries, they have a selection librarian or collection development librarian that decides whether or not a ZipBooks is added to the collection. But there's still a fairly good amount of libraries that also will have just the ZipBooks staff make that decision. And then it looks like nearly 70% of the libraries will just wait to catalog the item when it's returned to the library, which might just make it easier for them in the process. And then it looks like, yeah, 68% of the libraries add the book plate to their ZipBooks item, every ZipBooks item. And then just a few libraries use a ZipBooks sticker. But that's just another added step. I think when we talk about the marketing, we might see some people, instead of using a ZipBooks sticker, they create a ZipBooks display that can help share the items that other patrons are requesting. Great. Let's see. I'm going to stop sharing that. And so if you folks have any other best practice for end processing, please share it in the chat box, because we'd love to know what you folks do to make that process a little bit easier for you folks. And I look forward to reading your answers afterwards. We'll just keep moving forward because I want to make sure that we have time for questions. So fiscal, I know this year's a little bit unique because we've had a few, we've had libraries take over paying your bills, but we do want to know kind of generally some fiscal procedures that you folks do. We want to know if your library has a standard or business ZipBooks account, Amazon account. That's a recent discussion that we've had to make. We also want to know if you folks are regularly maintaining your Amazon address book, and that's connected to whether or not you have a standard or business account, because we've found out that there are limits to how many names you can have in a standard account. And then we also want to know if you folks set a monthly spending budget or goal for your program. Let's see. And I'll have you folks continue filling out the polls as I go through our recommended best practices. So we asked that libraries sign up for a standard Amazon account when they start their ZipBooks program. This is because it's free, and then the Prime membership fee is normal. It's the basic fee. But some libraries have either chosen to upgrade to a business Amazon account for various reasons, and that involves there's an annual fee with having a business account, and there is also a higher cost for Prime membership. And that's something that some libraries have chosen to do because, because with the standard account, you're limited to only 500 names in your address book. So it requires libraries to either routinely purge their address book or to choose to upgrade. And right now we are telling libraries if they choose to upgrade to a business Amazon account that the fees associated with that will have to be paid by the library, because we want to keep the administrative costs minimum for the ZipBooks. And So that's sort of a decision that some have made it to do if they have the funds available. And budgeting is a new thing that has come up this year. The ZipBooks has been doing really well, and a lot of programs are now just sort of hitting the ground running and growing in popularity, and that's required us to sort of have conversations with libraries on how to make sure that they're staying within their budget. One really great thing that Siskiyou County has chosen to do with regards to that is they share their funding availability with their patrons through their ZipBooks webpage. They, I think, routinely update it every few months, and it lets the patrons know how much funds they have. So I think as Teresa has mentioned, that has helped to patrons be a little bit more conscientious about the items that they're requesting, knowing that the funds are finite and that they only have a certain amount left. And some libraries have also chosen to help supplement their allocation with library funds or Friends of the Library support, just to make sure the programs continue without having to pause ordering due to low funds. Let's see, I'm going to end the poll and share the results just so we can go over that really quickly. So it looks like, that's interesting. We've got 50% of the libraries have a business account, which is a lot more than I thought. And then 44% have the standard account. So that's interesting. Maybe some folks, that's just because it's through their library that they automatically get a business account. And I hope my procedures, I think sometimes my procedures don't match with a business account because it's a little bit different than what I see. So that's just good to know. And whether or not libraries purge their address book, it looks like most have not had to do that, either because they have a business account or because they haven't reached the limit. And then also it looks like 72% of the libraries don't set a monthly budget. That just may be because you folks in the past have just expended your funds and then paused your program when the funds were spent, or because there isn't a real need to do that at that moment. Let me just and the invoicing, some best practices for invoicing that we have recommended, and while you folks have been in charge of paying your bills, so it's just reviewing the invoices and checking them against your order history reports. Some people might have already noticed this before, but sometimes the shipping costs for certain orders from third-party vendors won't be properly reflected in the regular items order history report that you send to us. That's we can't figure out why it's just some third-party vendors and not all third-party vendors, but when we review your order history report, and our fiscal department checks it against the invoices to make sure that the prices are correct, and some folks have also checked it against. There is a orders and shipment report that you can also generate on Amazon, and that has it doesn't have the title information, which is what we need, so we don't generally ask for it, but it's a good way to see the differences in the shipping costs. It'll indicate if there was a shipping cost charge that we didn't see in the items report. So that's just a little good info to know if you folks are interested in sort of keeping track of your spending on your own. Let's see, it's 12:42 and we've got a couple more sections to go. So I'm gonna quickly move on, and we are going to talk about marketing really quickly. This one has just 3 questions. We want to know if you folks are actively marketing your ZipBooks program, what approaches you've used to market. I think most people have said word of mouth has worked really well for them. We also know if you've established partnerships with other library services, such as with your homebound services or literacy program. We recommend creating a marketing plan, especially for libraries that are fairly new, to just determine what resources are available, what requirements must be met, and then we suggest adapting them as the program continues to grow, to see what worked and what didn't work, and what genres you might maybe want to push. Say if you aren't getting that many audiobook requests, you could choose to feature that aspect of the program. And then it's also good to know to know when to stop marketing. I think that's a good point that someone had made in our first general meeting, that if you're low on funds, then you might want to pull back on marketing your program until the new fiscal year starts. Oops, sorry. There are various marketing materials that we do provide, and we recommend sort of keeping those the reference desk or checkout desk. Some people have also added it to their welcome kits and adapted it to either add program information in the back, or created their own marketing materials to either add their library logo or match the look of their existing marketing materials. And then, we've been talking to libraries and getting some really interesting ideas of things that they've done to promote the program and all in the poll, and we can go over that. It does look that most people are actively marketing. Let me share that. And that word of the mouth, again, it seems to be the best approach for libraries. They also will use 79% use their website or social media. They use 74% use the print materials, and then 62% use the library displays. And that's a great idea. We've been hearing from libraries. They will create a what your community is reading display, so people can browse what other ZipBooks are being requested. And I think people are really curious to see what their neighbors are reading, and it's sort of like a way of getting recommendations from neighbors. And let's see, whether or not library has established partnerships right now, most have not, but some have, and I'd be interested to see what some of those partnerships have been. I know at Humboldt, they worked with a family services program that helps children on the Indian reservation. Well, they'll have a program that they will help the children read books after school. and they've worked with ZipBooks to get some of the books that the kids request be sent to that library for them to read during those program times. And I think I'm curious to see if anyone has worked with homebound services, because I think that'd be a really great collaboration. But I know there's the question of how do you get those books back. And so we'd love it if you folks would share your marketing best practices. Great. And then lastly, we just want to talk about management. And this one's just one question. I'm curious myself just to see how many people are working on the ZipBooks program in your library, if it's just a couple dedicated staff or if everyone's involved in some way. So, you know, we recommend having at least 2 people working on the ZipBooks program, have one person designated as the coordinator, and having someone be a support either on a daily basis or when as just a backup for when the coordinator is on vacation or out sick. And also it's helpful. Some libraries are going through staff changes, and it can help to ease in transition if there's at least one other person that's as familiar with the process. You know, and then we also have all these staff training resources available. You know, the documents that we have and the toolkits that we'll be creating. There's the listserv that folks are welcome to post questions to. I'm available for questions. We recommend you folks creating your own staff training materials for local policies and procedures that might differ from what we generally recommend, and keeping those together in a binder or a file folder that that's shared online that people can refer to. And also want to remind you folks that we have our ZipBooks website that has everything, which we are going to, we plan to update soon. So you can keep your eye on that. And if there's any other practices in helping to manage your ZipBooks program, we'd love to hear that. I'll share the results of the poll, and it looks like it's generally 66% say it's just 1 or 2 dedicated staff members. So it's usually a fairly small group, and as your program grows, you might need to add more people, or that might be sufficient for your needs, and that's great. And I really admire you folks and everything you folks do to help ZipBooks be a success in your community. So those are some of our best practices in the policies and procedures and management and whatnot. And we'd love to hear if you folks have other best practices that haven't fit in any of those groupings, or if you have any questions. We've got about 10 minutes, and Jackie, I don't know, now might be a good time for us to unmute those on the phone if they want to ask questions, and I'll start scrolling through some of the chat box to see if there's anything that I can answer.
I'll go ahead and unmute all, and if it becomes too noisy, then I'll just mute everyone. But if you're
okay,
we'll see how this works. So everybody's unmuted at this time. If you want to ask a question and you have either phone or computer microphone access, let us just ask.
so it looks like people are talking about their staffing, and So Kim at Monterey mentioned that their public desk staff will take ZipBooks requests, so that they'll help at the beginning of the process, but then they have assigned people to do the ordering and the back end stuff, and that's a good approach. Let's see. It's difficult for me scrolling from the bottom up. I'm not following some of the threads here. It looks like some people have mentioned that they've changed policies. See, Ivera mentioned that they did allow the maximum, but the money was going too fast, so they've changed that and reined it into 1 at a time and 3 items per month. So it's great to see that programs sort of keeping an eye on their funds and how their program's growing and adjusting to make things work better for them. Let me see.
So I have a question. This is Imperial Public Library. If you suspect a patron of not reading the ZipBooks that they order and they order their maximum amount every month, what can be done?
So you suspect that they're, thank you for your question, Imperial Public. So are you suspecting that they're just requesting their maximum to get it added to the collection, or?
Yeah, I think they're just ordering to get what books they want seen in the library ordered, because the spines aren't cracked. Sometimes they return it in the envelope within days of receiving it.
Oh, okay. That's a really interesting situation. I'm not sure. I mean, that it is one of the great benefits of ZipBooks is that, you know, I think a lot of patrons appreciate the aspect of being able to have a say in growing the library collection. I guess it is a little bit difficult to track or prove if they're not reading it. I would maybe recommend.
Well,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was recommended by one of my coworkers to ask how the book was, and she has admitted at one time or another that she didn't have the opportunity to read it, but she has time with it, so I don't understand what's going on with her or why she's doing it.
Uh-huh. Do you folks keep track of if those books go out afterwards once they've added to your collection, or are those books not being added to your collection?
We add every single zip book we get, but as for her books, it's a hit or miss. Most of them are like self-help things that people really don't want to read.
Uh-huh.
And so it's coming to a point that she orders every single month 5, 5, 5, that I feel like something should be done, but I don't know what to do, and I don't want to offend a patron.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a little tricky situation. It'd be great to see what other libraries have to say about that. I think what you and your colleague had suggested, just having a conversation with the patron to see, you know, how they're using the ZipBooks program. You can maybe choose to limit the, you know, setting an expenditure cap if it's a concern, if you think too much of your funds is being allocated to just fulfilling this one person's requests. I don't know if that's anything that, you know, the state library or NorthDit would have a set policy on. So I think that
There are some, this is Jackie, there's some really good suggestions coming through the chat that I would refer you to from your colleagues in the field that may have been experienced this same thing. So yeah, there is no problem.
Okay.
Yeah, it looks like, yeah, just having that conversation with the patron, explaining again the purpose of the program and explaining that some things might not be added, so it's kind of a drain on your funds and your time, and kind of reminding.
I think there also might be a slight mental health issue there. I mean, not a major one, but it's just, I study patrons really well, and there's just something a little off. So I don't want to upset her too bad, but yeah, I think what we're going to probably do is limit her to 3 books a month.
Yeah, that sounds like it's, if it's just maybe this one patron, then discussing it with her and limiting her requests might be good, and that way you don't have to do a blanket change for your entire program just because of one issue. Let's see. So that's a really great question. I appreciate you bringing that up, and I appreciate everyone sort of sharing their suggestions in the chat box. Let's see. Does anyone else have any questions or policies that they'd like to share? Otherwise, let's see, it's 12:58. I
want to mention again about the Survey Monkey that's going to be going?
Oh, yes. Okay. I will do that now. So this is the link to the feedback survey, just for the quick 3-minute. Oops. I just sent that to, how do I send it to everyone? Okay. Just a quick 3-minute survey on what you thought about the today's session. I will be sharing a different link. I don't have it now because I wanted to make sure I double check to see if there were any questions that we wanted added to the best practices survey. But I will be, as soon as the meeting is done and we get the recording, which I think takes just a few minutes, I'll be sharing the recording link, the link to the best practices survey for those who called in and couldn't participate in the polls, or for those who couldn't make it in today. You can share your feedback through that, and like I said, everything that you share with us, we'll see what can be put into our best practices toolkit, and it's just really useful information for us to just know as your program managers. And then I think that's it for today. I also want to remind everyone to don't forget to send in their stats and order history reports. I think I'm really looking forward to reading all these chats. I had hoped not to do as much talking this time around, but I see you folks have been doing a lot of chatting in the chat box, so we'll make sure to share, save that conversation as well, and share that with everyone to have as a reference. And as I said, we'll hopefully be updating the ZipBooks website soon, so you'll be able to find all these recordings and additional resources on there. Great. I will end the session, or do we want people to have extra time to chat if they want? I don't know. It looks like a few people had few things to say. Well, great.
Well, I can end the recording now, and then we'll leave the chat room open for a little.
Okay, great. This has been really great, everyone. Thank you so much for attending. We had a good number of you out there, and I appreciate you folks taking the time to join us today and sharing your thoughts.
Thank you all for joining us. Yeah, have a good holiday too.